My mom threw me out at 16 to raise her real kids. Now I'm rich and she wants me to pay for their college. But what happened on my porch made me question everything. That's what I heard before I even got to the steps. My mother was already halfway down the porch, arms crossed, lips pinched so tight I could see the white of her knuckles from the sidewalk. I hadn't seen her in over a decade, and this was the welcome I got. She didn't know. Not yet. I didn't tell her I'd made the Forbes 30 under 30 list last month. Or that the blacked-out SUV I pulled up in wasn't a rental, it was mine. Or that the guy waiting in the driver's seat was my assistant, not my Uber. She had no idea who I was now. To her, I was still the girl she threw out when I was 16 with nothing but a backpack and a library card. I stood there on her weather-worn porch, staring at the woman who used to tell me, "Mama's gotta focus on the babies now," like I wasn't one of them. "What do you want, Reese?" she spat. "You don't get to show up after all this time and act like." "I'm not here for you," I cut in, voice calm but firm. "I got your letter." She blinked like I'd slapped her. Good. The truth was I almost tossed it without reading. A thick envelope, my name scrawled in her old, flowery cursive like we were pen pals instead of estranged. Inside was the plea, tuition bills for 2 of her kids, my half-siblings. A note in blue ink, "You've made it. They need your help. Don't turn your back on your family." Family. That word has been a curse and a weapon in my life. I used to beg for scraps of that word. After she kicked me out to raise her new kids, I lived in a church basement for 4 months. Took on 2 part-time jobs before I finished high school. Built my empire of tech consulting by 27. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I wanted to never need her again. But now she needs me. "I'm just asking you to be decent," she snapped. "They're good kids. Bright. Just like you were." That were landed hard. Like I didn't exist anymore. Like I'd stopped being her daughter the moment she got remarried and decided I was too much baggage for her shiny new life. "You kicked me out at 16, remember?" I said. "So unless you've got an apology and a time machine in that house, I don't see how this conversation continues." And here's where it shifted. The screen door creaked. A boy tall, probably 18, peeked out. "Mom? Everything okay?" Her eyes darted to him. Then softened. "Go back inside, baby." But he didn't. He just stared at me. And I knew in that moment I wasn't just a ghost from the past. I was a walking contradiction to the version of me she painted for them. The selfish sister. The one who abandoned them. The failure. Except I wasn't a failure. I was a success story that refused to be claimed. I turned back to her. "You didn't ask me here because you care. You asked because your checkbook doesn't stretch like it used to." "Let me guess, stepdad gone? Lost the job?" She flinched. "Nailed it. Just tell me what you're going to do," she hissed. "Are you helping or not?" I exhaled slow. Heavy. And the question sat in my chest like a cinder block. Do I help the family that threw me away, or do I finally choose myself? I didn't answer her right away. Instead, I looked past her at the chipped paint on the doorframe I used to sneak out of when the shouting inside got too loud. At the same porch swing where she once held my baby brother, cradling him like he was made of gold, while I sat on the steps with a bloody nose from school and no one asked what happened. "Can I come in?" I asked, not sure why I said it. She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Don't take long," she muttered. The house hadn't changed much. Same cracked linoleum floors. Same sagging couch. But everything looked smaller now. Or maybe I was just bigger than I used to be, more solid, harder to knock down. The boy, Toby, she called him in the letter, watched me carefully from the hallway. He looked so much like her it made my stomach flip. Big brown eyes, curly hair, too much weight on too young shoulders. He didn't look angry. Just curious. "Are you my sister?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, I guess I am." He took a small step forward. "You were gone a long time." I wasn't sure what to say to that. How do you explain abandonment to a kid who's still living inside the myth of family? Before I could answer, Mom stepped in. "Reese came to talk about college stuff," she said briskly. "Go back to your room, sweetheart." He lingered another second, then disappeared down the hall. We sat in the living room. I stayed on the edge of the armchair. She perched on the couch like a queen without a throne, trying to maintain some illusion of control. "He wants to study engineering," she said, pulling out a wrinkled pamphlet from a community college. "He's bright, like I said. Always building things. I thought, if you helped with tuition, maybe he could." "Did you know I was homeless that first year?" I cut in. Her lips pressed into a line. "I slept in a storage unit behind the bakery I worked at," I said, voice flat. Used the gym showers at the YMCA. Took my GED by flashlight. That was years ago, she said quietly. You made it. You left me, I said, heat finally rising in my chest. You said you couldn't afford to take care of me and your new family at the same time. So you chose them. She closed her eyes. It wasn't that simple. No. I stood. You picked comfort over me. And now you want a second chance through your son. Her eyes opened, sharp and glistening. I made mistakes, Reese. But don't punish them for it. You think I don't feel guilty every day? I paused. That part at least felt real. But guilt's cheap. It's what you do with it that matters. I walked to the door. Her voice followed. I'm not asking for me, she said. I'm asking for them. I turned back, hand on the doorknob. Then maybe they should hear the truth. She paled. I left her there, silence falling over that little house like a storm cloud waiting to burst. I climbed back into the SUV, shut the door, and told Mason to drive. As we pulled away, I glanced at the rearview mirror and saw Toby peeking through the curtain. The choice was clawing at my insides now. Was I going to help them? Or was I done carrying the weight of people who never carried me? I spent the whole drive back to the city replaying the conversation in my head. Mason, ever the professional, didn't say a word, just drove in silence while I stared out the tinted window, watching telephone poles blur past like ticking seconds. I don't know what I expected from going there. Closure? A clean break? Maybe just the satisfaction of watching her scorn? Instead, all I felt was raw. Like I'd clawed open an old scar that never healed right in the first place. I told myself I'd made my decision. That I was done. But when I got home, the letter was still sitting on the kitchen counter, creased from where I'd crumpled it before smoothing it out again. And tucked inside the envelope, almost like a guilt trip hidden in paper, was a photo. Toby and Kendra, the youngest. Smiling with honor roll ribbons around their necks. Kendra couldn't be more than 14. She looked like me at that age. Same stubborn eyes, same hunger to be seen. The past had always been a clean break in my mind. Black and white. They failed me, so I moved on. But now? Now it was all bleeding into the present, and I hated how unsure I felt. The next day, I met up with Dev, my business partner and oldest friend, at a rooftop cafe in Midtown. He ordered a lavender espresso because he's fancy like that. I stuck with black coffee. So, the porch confrontation. How'd it go? He asked, sipping like we weren't talking about emotional landmines. I shook my head. She wants me to pay for their college. Both of them. Dev raised a brow. After kicking you out at 16? Bold move. She framed it like I'd be saving them. Like I'd be a hero. He leaned in. Are you? I hesitated. They didn't do anything to me. They were just kids. Still are, he said. But so were you. That hit harder than I expected. He tapped his cup. Look, you're not obligated to be anyone's redemption arc. You made a life. A damn impressive one. You don't owe them your healing. But what if I'm the only shot they've got? I asked quieter now. Then that's her burden to carry, he said, I steady. Not yours. That night, I sat in my office with the city lights casting reflections on the glass. I opened up 2 browser tabs. One for the college's financial aid page. One for a luxury travel site. And I stared at both like they held the answer. One path meant dipping into money I'd fought tooth and nail to earn, rewriting history in the process. The other meant walking away. Clean. Cold. Final. At 1:43 a.m., I clicked X on both tabs. Because the truth was I wasn't ready to decide. Not yet. But something had shifted. The story wasn't just about me anymore. There were 2 kids out there, kids who didn't ask for any of this. And one of them saw me on the porch. That image kept haunting me. Not my mother's voice. Not her desperation. But the look in Toby's eyes. A mix of recognition and hope. That scared me more than anything. It happened 3 days later, just after sunset. I was finishing up a call when my intercom buzzed. I ignored it at first, figured it was a delivery. But then it buzzed again. And again. Like whoever it was had nowhere else to be. I hit the screen and nearly dropped my phone. It was Toby. Standing there in a faded hoodie, backpack slung over one shoulder, looking like he didn't know whether to cry or run. I buzzed him in. When I opened the door, he just stood there on the hallway mat like he wasn't sure if he'd crossed a line. Hey, he said quietly. Hey, I replied, just as stunned. What are you doing here? He shifted his weight, staring at the floor. I took the bus. I know where you work. Your name's online. I figured out your building. My gut twisted. Did something happen? Is your mom okay? He nodded. She's fine. I wanted to talk to you. Without her. I let him in, watching as he took everything in, the minimalist space, the tall windows, the polished floors. It probably looked like another planet to him. You hungry? I asked. He nodded and I warmed up leftovers, soba noodles and garlic tofu, nothing fancy. He ate like he hadn't had a real meal in days. And then, between bites, he said it. She told us you left because you didn't want to be part of the family. That you chose money over people. I sat down across from him. Is that what you believed? He shrugged. I didn't know what to believe. But I saw your face on that porch. You didn't look like someone who walked away. You looked like someone who got left behind. That hit me right in the ribs. He pulled a worn notebook out of his bag and pushed it across the table. Inside were sketches. Pages and pages of blueprints, rough, unpolished, but clever. Designs for drones, simple engines, even a homemade wind turbine model. You're really into this, huh? I asked. He nodded. It's the only thing that makes sense sometimes. I got it. That need to build something, fix something, when your world's always breaking. He looked up. I don't want anything from you. I'm not here to ask for money. I just wanted to know if I was anything like you. I blinked, completely caught off guard. You're smarter than me, I said honestly. His shoulders relaxed like he'd been holding his breath for a year. Then he stood up. I should go. She doesn't know I'm here. I walked him to the door. As he turned to leave, he said one more thing. You don't have to help us. But I'm glad I met you. And then he was gone. I stood there long after the elevator doors shut. The past had just walked into my apartment wearing a hoodie and carrying blueprints. And it didn't ask for forgiveness or a check. Just the truth. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept thinking about Toby's face, the quiet way he looked around my apartment, like he didn't believe spaces like this were meant for people like him. Like us. I stared at the notebook he'd left behind, still sitting on my kitchen counter, as if it might answer all the questions spinning in my chest. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was a fluke. A one-time visit. A weird, emotional blip that I could compartmentalize. Until my doorbell rang again. This time it wasn't Toby. It was her. My mother. She stood outside with a grocery bag in one hand and nerves all over her face. I didn't buzz her in right away. I just watched her on the screen, debating whether I had the strength to open the door. Eventually I did. I figured you'd slam it in my face, she said as I opened it. Still might, I replied. She walked in slowly like she expected the place to swallow her. I didn't offer coffee or small talk. Just waited. I didn't know he'd come here, she said, finally sitting on the edge of the sofa. He left a note on his bed. I panicked. He didn't ask me for anything, I said. I know. She nodded. That's the part that scared me. She took a shaky breath. Reese. I told myself I was protecting them. But I see now that I was just hiding. From you. From what I did. I stayed quiet. You were always the strong one, she said. I thought you'd land on your feet. That maybe somehow I wasn't really abandoning you. That's how I justified it. She looked up at me. But I see what I did now. I see what it cost you. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. She pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her pocket, one of Toby's sketches. He used to hide these from me. I thought they were silly. But now, I think he's trying to build a world he understands. Like you did. I wanted to be angry. To yell. But all I felt was tired. She stood up, placing the sketch on the table like an offering. I'm not asking you to fix this, she said. Just, don't punish them for my mistakes. And then she left. No drama. No tears. Just silence. For the second time in 2 days, my past had knocked on my door. And this time it didn't beg. It apologized. The funny thing about resentment? It doesn't disappear just because someone finally says sorry. That night, I sat with my finger hovering over the send button. I'd pulled up the tuition page for the local college Toby had his eye on. It wasn't even that much by my standards anyway. A semester's worth of classes, books, fees. One wire transfer and he'd be covered. But my hand wouldn't move. Not because I didn't care. I did. Because I wasn't sure who I was doing it for. Him? Or the version of me still trying to make my mother say I'm proud of you? I closed the laptop. I needed air. I threw on a hoodie and went for a walk. The city was humming that night, lights blinking like the pulse of a giant machine, strangers brushing past without looking. I used to find comfort in that. In the anonymity of it all. But tonight, everything felt sharper. I was too aware of myself. Of everything. That's when my phone rang. Private number. I answered on instinct. Reese. Toby's voice. I'm sorry, he said quickly. I didn't mean to make things worse. You didn't, I said, sitting on a bench outside a closed bookstore. I think you did everything right. He was quiet for a beat. Then why does it feel like I broke something? I let out a breath. Because the truth does that. It breaks before it builds. We talked for a while after that, about his ideas, about school, about how his mom used to tell him I was a cautionary tale. Don't be like Reese, she'd say, always running. Always angry. I thought that made you reckless, he admitted. But now I think it made you brave. I didn't know what to say to that. By the time we hung up, something had shifted again. I opened the college site one last time. Typed in all the details. But this time I stopped at the final screen. Instead of clicking submit payment, I typed an email. Just one line. Toby, you've got this. But the first investment's gotta come from you. Prove it. And I'll match every dollar. I hit send. Then I sat back and waited. I wasn't the family's villain. But I wasn't going to be their savior either. Not unless someone met me halfway. A week passed. No word. No thank you, no complaint, no guilt-ridden reply from my mother. I figured maybe I'd finally drawn the line deep enough in the sand. And honestly, it felt freeing. Like I'd finally stopped auditioning for a role in a family that never planned to cast me in the first place. Then on Thursday morning, something showed up in my mailbox. A manila envelope, no return address, just my name scrawled in blocky handwriting. Inside? A folded-up sheet of graph paper. One of Toby's sketches. But this one was different. It wasn't a drone or an engine. It was a house. A rough but ambitious blueprint for a modular home, solar-powered, weather-adaptable, and made of recycled shipping containers. At the top corner in pencil he'd written, "For people who don't get to start over. They build it themselves." Taped to the back was a bank receipt, $218. The balance from his summer landscaping job, deposited just 3 days ago. He didn't send a letter. He didn't need to. I stared at that sketch for a long time, fingers pressed into the paper like it might vanish if I let go. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I got in my car, drove out of the city, and showed up at a little community center on the edge of town. One of those teach-a-skill programs for underfunded schools. I spoke to the director, a woman named Darla who smelled like chalk dust and peppermint. I've got a kid who builds blueprints in his sleep, I told her. And a little money. Think we can make something happen? She smiled. We can do a lot with the little money if the kid's half as sharp as you say. By sundown, I'd committed to funding a full 6-month mentorship track. Not just for Toby, but for any kid like him who needed a shot. I didn't tell him right away. I wanted him to get the acceptance email on his own. To feel what I never got to feel at 16. That someone believed in him before he proved anything. I still wasn't sure where that left me and my mother. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't building something for her. I was building something with someone. Someone who knocked on my door just to ask if he was anything like me. Turns out, he's everything I wish I'd been allowed to be. It was a Saturday morning when I found myself back on that porch. Same cracked steps. Same uneven railing. But this time I wasn't shaking. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I came because Toby had asked me to. Just for lunch, he'd said. It'd mean a lot. I told myself I wasn't coming. And yet there I was. The door creaked open before I could knock. Mom stood there, hands dusted in flour. He's in the backyard, she said, stepping aside. I walked past her without a word. No grudge, no kindness. Just distance. Out back, Toby was crouched over a small wooden platform, hammering something into place. A garden box, maybe? Kendra sat nearby, holding nails like it was a treasure. Hey! Toby looked up, grinning. She came. She. Not my sister. Just she. Still figuring out what I meant to him, I guess. But he handed me a hammer without a second thought. We worked in silence for a bit, the kind that wasn't awkward, just easy. Like maybe we'd done this 100 times in another life. You ever think about what would have happened if they hadn't pushed you out? He asked after a while. I wiped sweat from my brow. Every day for 10 years. He nodded slowly. You think you'd be better off? I glanced at him. I think I'd be someone else entirely. Not sure that's better. He didn't say anything back. Just passed me another nail. Later, while Kendra showed me her school art projects inside, I heard my mom in the kitchen, humming while she cleaned. It hit me that I hadn't heard her hum in years. Not since before everything fell apart. I waited by the front door after saying my goodbyes. She joined me, towel in hand. I saw what you did, she said softly. The program. The mentorship. I didn't respond. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to, I said. Just show up for them. She nodded, eyes rimmed red but not spilling over. I'm trying. I looked at her for a long second. Not the woman I remembered. Not quite someone new. Just someone trying in her own uneven way to be human again. As I stepped off the porch, she called out, you know, I brag about you now. That made me stop. Didn't used to, she added. But I do. They know who you are. They're proud. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I just smiled to myself and kept walking. Because for the first time, I wasn't walking away from something. I was walking toward it. It's been 6 months. Toby's nearly done with his mentorship program. The instructors send me updates every week. Apparently he's a natural leader. Quiet but sharp. He's working on a group project designing emergency housing for flood-prone areas. Says he wants to build things that matter. Kendra started sending me drawings. At first, they were just kid stuff, rainbows, robots, a surprisingly detailed platypus. But last week, she mailed one that almost made me cry. It was a drawing of a porch. Ours. But instead of her mom standing at the door, it was me. And next to me? Her and Toby, arms linked. Underneath, she wrote, this is when we started over. I didn't respond right away. Still haven't, actually. Sometimes silence feels safer than words. My relationship with my mom is complicated. We don't talk much. But she hasn't asked for money again. That feels like something. Dev jokes that I'm becoming a reluctant fairy godmother. Maybe, but I don't grant wishes. I just open doors. And I've learned not to open them for people who expect it. Just the ones who knock with both hands and mean it. The best part? Last month, I found a sticky note on my own front door. It said, accepted into state. With honors. No signature. Didn't need one.